You open your eyes, stare at the ceiling, and feel like you haven't slept a wink. You do the math, you were in bed for exactly 8 hours. So why do you feel completely exhausted? That groggy, heavy feeling dragging you down is called sleep inertia. It's a physiological state where your brain struggles to transition out of sleep mode, and it severely impairs your focus, memory, and reaction times for the first 2 hours of your day. We often assume that lying in bed from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. equals a full night's rest. But data from modern sleep wearables has exposed a gap between time spent in bed and time spent in restorative sleep. We tend to think of our rest as one continuous 8-hour block. In reality, it is a fragile architecture built on a series of biological cycles, each lasting roughly 90 minutes. Within each of those cycles, your brain moves through distinct stages. You drop down into the valleys of deep sleep, where your body conducts heavy physical maintenance, repairing tissue and regulating hormones. Then you rise into the peaks of REM sleep, where your brain consolidates memories and processes the emotional residue of your day. If these 90-minute cycles get cut short or scrambled, those crucial physiological and neurological processes are interrupted. Protecting the continuous flow of these cycles is vastly more important than simply counting the total number of hours you spent under the covers. It's 10 p.m. To initiate that first crucial sleep cycle, your nervous system must shift into a quiet, parasympathetic state, a biological mode of rest and digestion. Peering into a backlit screen introduces an immediate physical roadblock. The blue light wavelengths emitted by your phone actively suppress your brain's production of melatonin, the hormone responsible for signaling that it's time to sleep. The light itself is only half the problem. The simple act of scrolling, reading, or watching a video activates reward circuits in your brain associated with dopamine. You are deliberately triggering emotional arousal and mental engagement. This chemical stimulation forces your brain into a state of hyperarousal that is biologically incompatible with sleep. Even if you use a blue light filter, that dopamine-driven alertness remains, keeping your mind racing long after you actually turn the device off. Bedtime scrolling actively sabotages your night. It chemically pushes back the onset of that first cycle and reduces its depth, leaving you in a state of high alertness when you should be descending into recovery. By 1 a.m., your brain is navigating the early night cycles, which are heavily weighted toward deep sleep. This is the critical window where your body releases growth hormone and performs its most vital physical repairs. But this stage is highly vulnerable to micro-awakenings. These are tiny interruptions, lasting just a few seconds, that violently yank your brain out of deep sleep into a lighter stage, and they often happen without you consciously realizing it. This illustrates obstructive sleep apnea. In deep sleep, airway tissue collapses inward, physically blocking oxygen. When blood oxygen drops, survival instincts kick in. Your brain jolts awake to restart breathing. This physical emergency response can happen hundreds of times a night. Because these awakenings are so brief, your conscious mind never records them. You wake up the next morning feeling physically battered, completely unaware that your deep sleep was shattered into pieces. Fast forward to 3 a.m. As the night progresses, your sleep architecture naturally shifts, spending much less time in deep sleep and much more time in lighter, fragile REM sleep. Between 2 and 3 a.m., your brain slowly increases cortisol, the stress hormone, preparing to wake. But chronic anxiety artificially raises your baseline cortisol. When that natural 3 a.m. elevation adds to an elevated stress baseline, your hormone level spikes straight through the sleep threshold. This combined chemical surge jolts you completely out of that fragile REM stage and into wide-eyed consciousness. In the total quiet of the night, with nothing to distract you, your brain immediately latches on to tomorrow's to-do list, triggering a racing thought spiral. When these REM cycles are severed, the brain struggles to process the emotional residue of the day. This disruption is linked to heightened amygdala activity and overactive reactions, often manifesting as increased irritability, anxiety, or cognitive fog during the waking hours. When that alarm finally rings at 7 a.m., the exhaustion you feel isn't a mystery. It is the direct mathematical result of delayed onset, fractured deep sleep, and severed REM cycles. Recently, the popular response to this exhaustion has been to obsess over wearable recovery scores and hyper-optimize evening routines. Clinical psychologists have even identified a condition called orthosomnia, where the intense anxiety about achieving a perfect sleep score actively worsens a person's ability to fall asleep. The sleep economy is undergoing a massive shift away from relentless optimization and toward clinical simplicity. With the home diagnostic market projected to reach nearly $1 billion by 2035 and home sleep tests increasing by over 600%, people are moving past tracking fatigue and toward identifying clinical barriers like apnea and chronic microawakenings. Once you understand what is actually disrupting your biology, you can use that data to shape your physical environment. That means lowering the bedroom temperature to support deep sleep, masking disruptive noises, and strictly eliminating late-night artificial light. We spend enormous amounts of energy trying to force our bodies into a rigid 8-hour box. But your biology already knows exactly how to repair itself, provided it has the right conditions to do so. Our goal shouldn't be to micromanage the process, simply to get out of the body's way. Optimal sleep requires defending the uninterrupted architecture of your biology. Quality rest depends on the body's ability to execute its natural rhythms without external interference.